My name's Anne. You know me behind the mask. Welcome to Book Carnival. We're so happy today to have Gigi Pandian with us and her new book, Under Lock and SkeletonKey. That's a spooky title, and you're going to tell us why. So everybody sit back and enjoy Gigi, and we'll talk after. And then there's,
yes.
And she's going to put it back in place.
I will get this back set up and I will take this off as soon as you are back there.
I will,
so,
I'm gone.
Okay. Okay. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. And I am the guinea pig for Book Carnival, that we are doing a combination of all of you there in person and folks that are watching on our little streaming here that we're recording from the bookstore. So thank you all, both virtual and in person, for bearing with us as we try this joint combo event. So I'm so happy to be down here. I grew up in Orange County, and so it's wonderful to be back. I'm staying with my childhood best friend on this book tour here, so it's really lovely. And there she is in back. So it's really fun to be here to be talking about Under Lock and SkeletonKey, which is the first in my new Secret Staircase mystery series. And this book is one that took me a long time to figure out how to write. And it was actually the pandemic that is what helped me figure out how to actually tell Tempest's story. So I should back up for just a minute and tell you a little bit about what the book is about. And then I'd love to go into how this book came to be. So Secret Staircase Construction is no ordinary home renovation company. They build magic into people's homes through things like sliding bookcases that lead to hidden reading nooks and secret staircases and hidden gardens that you can only access through grandfather clocks that are more than they seem. So little special magical home renovations like that. And Tempest Raj grew up with this as her parents' family business, but she wanted to strike out on her own, and she became a famous stage illusionist. And she's become very successful. She's from a long line of stage magicians, but her parents never wanted her to do it herself because there's a supposed family curse: the eldest child dies by magic. And her grandfather actually left India when the curse struck his own generation. And so he left for Scotland for school, where he met Tempest's grandmother. But so Tempest, still, it's in her blood. She wanted to become a magician. So she has a successful stage show in Las Vegas. But when the book opens, her career is in ruins. Her show in Las Vegas has been sabotaged. And so she has moved back into her childhood bedroom and is starting work for the family business, Secret Staircase Construction. And for any of the rest of us, that would sound like a pretty cool job, but because her own career has been ruined, she's, still coming to grips with this. But it turns out that trouble follows her home. And on her first day working for a job, a new renovation project that her dad's company is working on, her stage double is found dead inside a wall that has been sealed for nearly a century. So Tempest has to figure out how this seemingly impossible crime occurred, and if it was meant to be her, and really what on earth is going on. Is the family curse real, or is there a rational explanation for this? So that is what has kicked off the beginning of the book, and she needs to now solve this and get to the bottom of the family curse. And so it's a locked room mystery, an impossible crime story that she's solving here. And what I really wanted to do with this book is pay homage to the classic golden age of detective fiction novels that I grew up loving. And I've always loved impossible crime stories because, to me, they really are the ultimate puzzle, because it's not only a whodunit, but it's really how on earth could this crime actually have occurred. And in the golden age of detective fiction, when authors like John Dixon Carr and Eloise Queen and Agatha Christie and Anthony Berkeley and so many others were writing all of these ingenious puzzle plots, you could follow along with the clues and really solve the story before the detective, unless there was enough misdirection to guide you away from that, which they were so brilliant at doing. And so I have written several impossible crime short stories, but this is the first time that I've put one front and center as the main plot of one of my mystery novels. And so this is my 12th novel to have been published. And so I was really thrilled that I figured out how to make it front and center, not just for a story or for a subplot of another novel, but it really is something that I was able to put front and center. And that's why I made Tempest Magician, because the misdirection that magicians use is so similar to what mystery writers writing puzzle plots are doing, that we're trying to really give you all of the clues, but also use our sleight of hand and misdirection to steer you away from what's actually happening. And so Tempest is the perfect amateur sleuth here as a stage magician, because she can see through this seemingly impossible crime and things that other people wouldn't necessarily see, because she knows how misdirection works. So she's able to be the one to solve this crime. And the reason that it took me so long to figure out how to tell Tempest's story is because I first started working on this book 6 years ago now. It was my 40th birthday. I had arranged for a writing retreat to take my writers group to a week-long writers retreat that I was organizing in Edinburgh, Scotland, because my writers group had been instrumental just a couple years before that in getting me through a full year of cancer treatments. And I did survive, and this is now my 10-year cancer-free anniversary, which is really exciting. Thank you. And so one of the things while I was going through chemotherapy, and my writers group was, one of my wonderful big support systems, was I said, I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to thank you all by taking us to Scotland, and I want to do this writing retreat. And so half of them ended up coming. I rented out a big flat, and as I am the guinea pig here, I want to make sure that I stay as the central image. Okay, I think I got it right. I minimized, but now I'm back here. So, okay. Oh wait, I'm small again. I don't want YouTube viewers to just see the little logo. Okay, I think I'm good. So I brought my writers group there, and we did a writing retreat. And because I had so much of that emotional baggage with me there on that trip, that it really was I survived cancer, I'm doing this trip that is a real extravagance, but I am doing this and living my life to the fullest. I was still, going through, I was still taking medication at the time, and really, cancer wasn't so far behind me. So when I started working on the book there, I had previously written a short story with the character of Tempest, and she was just so fun and such a larger than life character that she demanded I write a larger novel with her. But I had other book projects that I loved that I was working on, and so I kind of pushed her aside for a while. So this was the first time there that I was like, yes, I'm going to give myself the freedom to figure out how to write this book that I've been really wanting to figure out how to write. But because there was so much that I was just so excited about life and putting everything into this book, it turns out that putting absolutely everything into a book doesn't make for the best book. There was so much that I was trying to cram into this story. I thought it was going to be a standalone novel, and I wasn't even sure what genre of mystery it was going to be. I write on the lighthearted end of mystery fiction. Lots of people consider my books cozy mysteries. I don't ever know exactly where I fit. Okay, Anne is shaking her head, so you don't see that. But yeah, but it is on the lighthearted end of the spectrum of mystery fiction. So I thought maybe this book is a thriller because there's this big story that she wants to tell. And so I tried that, wasn't quite working. Maybe it's a gothic novel. I had I was jumping from locations. Part of the book was in California, part was in Scotland, part was in India. It was all over the map, and it was a mess. I showed my agent snippets of it. She very nicely shook her head and said I needed a lot of work, which she was totally right. But I was just trying to get all my ideas down. And it was a huge mess, but I loved so many of the story ideas there, like secret staircase construction, because Tempest's parents, her mom before disappearing was a stage magician and her dad a carpenter. So their line of creating the family business is what happens when a stage magician and a carpenter fall in love. They form a business to build magic into people's homes. So that idea was there from the start, but there was so much with the family curse and the impossible crime that was happening in that original version. That there was a crime both in California and in Edinburgh, and things were just, it was a huge mess going from character to character. But I was really just like, I'm going to throw everything in here. And then the retreat was over, and then I set it aside because it was a huge mess, figure it out later. And I came back to it several times over the few years after that writing retreat, but nothing was quite working. But I really, really loved this story. And so I kept coming back to it. And at the start of the pandemic, I had a book research trip planned in May of 2020 for a different book, going to Europe. So obviously that was completely canceled. And the universe was telling me, this is the time to work on this book. And I went on lots of walks in the hills above my house, right when the pandemic was starting. And I found this hidden creek in the hills above my house that I had never known had existed. I live in Northern California, and there's not a whole lot of rain. And so the creek doesn't always have water in it, but when it rains, you can hear the water running when you're going on walks. And I'm like, where is this? And so I found where this little creek, you could see it in some places, and then it would disappear underground and it would resurface other places. So my fictional small town where Tempest has moved back to, in this wonderful sprawling house where her parents had, experimented on their own house, building all of these secret passageways and all of these whimsical elements. I called the town Hidden Creek. So it's basically a fictionalized, much more interesting version of my small town in Northern California. But once I had that focus of not being able to travel, but setting the book in this fictional small town, everything fell into place. All of the elements that I had wanted to write originally, when I had that focus of coming home to this small town, reconnecting with her wonderful family and childhood friends and coming back there, I figured out the same story that I wanted to tell was all there, but it was now just based in this one place. And so there are still story elements and lots of backstory that you get to see things elsewhere, but it really is connected to Tempest and her family and friend unit that is there in the small town. So I was able to look inward there, and everything fell into place. And it also, because it's the first book in a series, and so the first impossible crime mystery is solved here, but then there are still many more adventures for all of those other elements that I was trying to shove into one book. Having it as a series now gives me that freedom that I have a really satisfying resolution here that I love, that I also showed to several writer friends who also love locked room mysteries, to make sure that they didn't guess the solution, but that I was playing fair with the reader. And they assured me that I was. So I got to do that. And I'm so excited. I just turned in the second book in the series to my editor, and got her feedback on that. So I'm really excited with continuing the series as well. Oh, and I'll also share, because this happened today, that was very exciting. It just got a great review in the New York Times book review today. So that was very exciting. They called it wildly entertaining, I believe it was. So
I meant to bring it in so that in case you hadn't seen it. It was wonderful to see.
Okay, Anne was saying she meant to bring it in for me to see, but we did actually. We went and found it right before coming here. So I have the print edition now. So yeah, so that'll be fun to see. But there are there are lots of directions that I could go in terms of talking about the book. So I'd like to pause for a minute to see if folks do have questions at this point, or if I should just keep talking about the book. I can read, I'm gonna read just like one page from the book too. But actually, why don't I read one page from here right now, and you can think about if there's questions, but otherwise I will talk about lots of other elements that I can talk about here. And I'm not gonna read just the first page, because I think if you pick up the book, that's what you will read. But I'm gonna read from the end of the first chapter, just to give you a little bit of a vibe of the setting in the book here. They followed the downward slope of the hill to the bright red front door of the treehouse. No ordinary key unlocked this door. The door handle was smooth, with no opening for a key. It was the grinning gargoyle door knocker that held the secret to letting you into the house. The person standing on the threshold needed to place a 3-inch brass skeleton key sideways in the gargoyle's mouth, as if he was clenching it in his pointy teeth, and then twist. As the gargoyle's teeth bit down on the key, the door unlocked. The door wasn't locked just now. Even if it had been, it wasn't especially secure. This was never meant to be a permanent house. Much like the rest of the dwelling, the front door lock was one of Tempest's parents' many experiments to create whimsical keys for indoor secret rooms. When her grandparents moved in 5 years ago, they never got around to installing the proper lock. It wasn't like much crime ever happened in Hidden Creek. The only crime of interest that had happened in the town's long history was the one that involved Tempest's own family. Tempest glanced at the 8 silver charms dangling from the bracelet she wore all the time. The thick bracelet, made up of chunky charms related to her mom Emma's love of magic, was the last thing her mom had given her before she vanished live on stage 5 years ago. The vanishing act wasn't part of the show, and Emma Raj hadn't been seen since. That was the first time that Tempest began to wonder if the legendary Raj family curse was real. And I will stop there and take a sip of water. And yeah, if there's any questions now, let me know.
Well, I have a comment. I
Yes.
want a house with all those things.
Oh yeah, so Anne has commented she wants a house with all of those things. My mom, who was one of my early readers, read it and said, "So when are you building me that tree house?"
I love movies where the bookcase swings out and there's a room behind it. I just always found that fascinating.
Oh yes, and a comment that loving the movies where there's a bookcase that swings out and there's something behind it. I know, I want one too. So I think a lot of this was also wish fulfillment, because stuck in the tiny house with my family, you know, and we don't have room for any like little secret escape room things, you know, so it was all, I made myself a reading nook. So I used to be someone who needed to get out of the house to write. I love meeting up with other writers at cafes in the before times, where we could just camp out at cafes where people, and you know, get plenty of food and coffee and watch each other's things. And the rule was we could chat and catch up for 15 minutes, and then we would need to do a work block of writing. And then we could take another brief break to chat, but then we would have to get back to writing. And sometimes writers I would try this with, it was clear they just wanted to chat as opposed to work, which is wonderful. And then I'll make a coffee date with my friend, but that is not going to be someone to write with at a cafe. And so that was how I was able to focus with someone else there with me, that we were like accountability partners as much as anything. And so when the pandemic started, it was a challenge to figure out how to just not be distracted by the world and get work done at home when there's other people at home as well. So really figuring out how to write at home. And I was able to do it relatively quickly, because when I was going through a year of cancer treatment several years before, chemo really wiped out my immune system. And so during that time, I was really only writing at home too, because I didn't want to go out exposing myself to things. So I had already learned some tricks then. And so it was still a bit of a challenge, but I was able to focus on writing first thing in the morning. I have a program on my computer that turns off the internet for a certain amount of time so that I can't, it saves me some from myself, basically. So, because really, if you think there's so much like little things that I want to look up online, and you think, oh, it'll just be 30 seconds. And then it's 30 minutes later before you realize what on earth is happening. And so it's just the natural instinct to, just like click on it. But then it has, instead of being able to go to a browser, it'll pop up an inspirational saying, things like, the best time to plant a tree was 7 years ago. The next best time is today, And so you, instead of your browser, it does come up because you are connected to the internet. It's just not letting you get there. It'll give you one of those things saying, basically, get your butt back in that chair. Don't be looking online. So I put that program back on my computer and was able to focus at home. And then if I was really distracted a certain day, I would even give my phone to my husband, because even if it's in the other room, I could go walk 10 seconds away and get my phone. But if he has it, he'll be like, really, is this an emergency? Do you need your phone? So I was really able to then focus and get so much writing done, and also so much reading. So I think that has been a silver lining during these difficult times. I read, because this book really does pay homage to so many classic mystery writers and that period of time, that there's so many great books from that time, that even though I'm a fan of books from that time, there's so many that I haven't read. So I was able to read a lot more of them over the last couple of years as well. And one of the elements that I wrote into this book was the Locked Room Library is a fictional setting it's a small private library in San Francisco that specializes in classic mystery fiction, especially locked room mysteries. And it's a setting that I wrote for an impossible crime short story that I wrote that was published in Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine last year. And I had written it a year before, and it was such a fun setting that when I started writing the book that became Under Lock and Skeleton Key, I thought to myself, wow, the Locked Room Library, the setting that I had put in there, because it has all these elements of classic detective fiction, different settings from books. Like there's the Train for Murder on the Orient Express is the meeting room of the library. And so I said to myself, I think that Secret Staircase Construction is the one that built that Locked Room Library. So one of Tempest's friends works there. And so there is lots of discussion that where they go to the Locked Room Library to be able to discuss the real impossible crime that's happening to them, to get inspiration there. And it's been really fun because I've had several people, I can't even remember if I wrote anywhere that it was fictional, but people are like, is this real? Can I go there? I would love to go there. So I think that we should create this library. So if anyone out there has, some money sitting around that you want to start a private library in San Francisco for classic detective fiction and build out all sorts of secret nooks and crannies and things, I think that it would be very well attended. So that would be very fun. So I would love to see if folks have questions or anything in particular that you want to talk about the book. Yes.
What was your journey to become a writer? When did you know you wanted to be a writer, and why did you go to the mystery genre?
Okay, so the question is, what was my journey as a writer to become a writer, and what drew me to the mystery genre? So I didn't choose mystery. Mystery really chose me. I grew up in a house filled with books, and mysteries were always the ones that I gravitated towards. There was other genres on the shelves, and I never liked them nearly as much. I might, read, I'd say probably now 75% of what I read is mystery, and something in a different genre can really grab me. And I really enjoy nonfiction as well, but probably 3/4 is mystery fiction that I read. And so even from a young age, it was always the mysteries, and I always wanted to buy more mystery books. And I was really obsessed with Scooby-Doo when I was young too, which I really think that I'm going all in on this now because it sounds kind of silly, but reviewers are saying this too. And so I'm going to embrace it because I think it sounds fun, that the book really is like Scooby-Doo or Nancy Drew for adults. But that's so fun. And so even though Scooby-Doo does sound like a childish thing, it's like, that is what got me started on mystery. And I love that I can do something similar, that I'm creating. There's a family curse and there's a supposed haunting, but there really is a rational explanation. So I love that I can create this, atmosphere where you're getting this cool, spooky ghost story, but you know that the ghost will be unmasked at the end. And so I loved the Scooby-Doo stories. I couldn't get enough of them. So I started making them up myself when I was really little. So that was probably my first foray into writing mystery. I didn't ever write them down, but I told the stories because I wanted my mom to make up more Scooby-Doo stories for me when there weren't more episodes and there weren't more books. And so I said, oh, make up more stories. But I didn't like the way her stories went. So I took over making up the stories. And so that was my first, writing mysteries. And then I wrote a lot of scripts and, little novels when I was a kid, but I never actually knew that you could have a creative career. Like I thought, that a job would be, I couldn't just make up stories for a job, that could be like a fun thing I did, but I didn't ever think it could actually be a job until I discovered National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, the challenge to write a full draft of a novel in 30 days. And I had previously been just playing with writing a novel, but when I discovered National Novel Writing Month, I was so excited that I actually did finish a draft of my first novel that I'd been playing with for years, but never reaching the very important stage of, getting to the end and typing those words. So I was so excited that I had finished it that I sent it off to the Malice Domestic Grants competition that year. And that's a competition that fosters the next generation of traditional mystery authors. So like in the tradition of Agatha Christie, that type of mystery. And I was so surprised that I won their grant that year. And that was what told me, oh, maybe I could actually do something with writing and I should take this seriously, that somebody sees potential in my work. And so that's when they pay for you to attend the conference when you get the Malice Domestic Grant. And so that was the first time that I met any other mystery writers. I didn't know anyone in the mystery writing community, but I went there and I felt like I had found my kindred spirits of other mystery readers and mystery writers. And so I thought to myself, these are people that I would like in my life, and this is a world I would like to be a part of. And it was so much fun to get to learn the craft of mystery fiction, to take this really good idea but messy draft and learn how to make that into a really good book. And so that's when I really started taking that seriously. But it took several more years to actually, was it several years? So it took me 2 more years to finish revising that book and get an agent. And then it took her more time to sell the book because my voice doesn't fit naturally into one mystery subgenre or another, or rather the stories I'm trying to tell with the type of mystery voice that I have, it's not easy to categorize what I'm doing. And so my path to publication was a really winding one because of, not neatly fitting in a box, and publishing is challenging for everyone because so many forces it has to be a great book and other forces have to align. So, but I'm so happy that I stuck with what I'm passionate about writing, because I feel like that does come through on the page, that I'm able to really create characters in a story that do come to life because I feel so passionately about what I'm doing. So even though it took a while for publishers for the market and the timing and everything to be right with that, I'm really glad that I'm doing what I love.
And what was the title of the first book?
Oh, and there was a question, what is the title of the first book? Artifact was my debut novel. It's the first in my Jaya Jones mystery series. And yeah, and so I have, I've written the Jaya Jones Treasure Hunt Mysteries and the Accidental Alchemist Mysteries, and now the new Secret Staircase Mysteries. And I'm alternating between the Jaya novels are paused because I always have to do so much book research for those ones, that was the trip that I was going to be taking that couldn't happen. But I'm still writing the Accidental Alchemist novels as well. And then the Secret Staircase Mysteries are kind of like a spinoff of the Jaya novels, because Sanjay, who's Jaya's best friend, is a stage magician. And so Tempest, the main character of Under Lock and Skeleton Key, is one of his magician friends. And Sanjay is one of those characters who really became much larger than I ever intended, because he's just such fun to write. And so he's just so fun. So he was a natural that he has a big part in the new series. And yeah, all of the Sanjay and the rest of the gang are such fun characters to write.
Sounds wonderful.
Are there more questions
There
from
was
folks?
one when you were talking and I've forgotten it now. so-
Okay, well, I think there's one in the back too. So then try to remember it, and then I'll take this one.
Just going off what you just said, like, what do you think would be the biggest difference, maybe besides just the lock room, subcategory or whatever, between this series and your other two series? What is your biggest differences that you've noticed?
Okay, so the question is, what is the biggest difference between this series and my other series, even beyond this one being a locked room mystery series? So I think that my writing is very much, okay, this is a non-answer. They're the same but different, because I think a writer's voice really comes through. And I think we all have authors that we love, that whatever they write, people will love. And so I've tried really hard to be, even when I write vastly different things, I've realized that I just need to be true to my own voice as a writer, because as I mentioned, when I tried to first work on this book and write something vastly different, that wasn't my natural voice. I do need to be writing lighthearted mysteries that are, I think of what I'm doing with this series as a Gothic cozy mystery, because there's all the spooky Gothic elements and architectural details that are really in there, but it really is based around a likable heroine who is an amateur sleuth and her group of friends and family. And it's really not a spoiler that in all of my books, that they are likable characters who I hope that you will want to be friends with and really have hang out with. They aren't people that you're watching because it's a train wreck that you can't look away from. And those books are great. And so if I'm in the mood for a twisty thriller where I can't trust any of the characters, then I devour those books and stay up way too late reading them. But that's not what I'm trying to write. I'm trying to, across all my series, I'm trying to write books where you really feel like you're not going to be horrified with any gratuitous violence or anything graphic like that. And that the main characters are not going to betray you in any way. They are reliable narrators. Well, I mean, as much as they can be. Like Sanjay has a huge ego, so you can't believe him about how awesome he is necessarily, but you would still want to hang out with him. So, but the differences would be the Accidental Alchemist series is the most different because it has a paranormal fantasy element, because those books are about a centuries-old alchemist and her impish gargoyle sidekick who was once carved in stone for Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, but was accidentally brought to life through alchemy. So those books are humorous mysteries that are paranormals, but they're still mysteries. The paranormal element doesn't actually solve any mysteries. So those are set in Portland, Oregon, and have, a gargoyle. So those are the most different. And the Jaya Jones novels have a very similar voice and no paranormal elements like the new Secret Staircase books, but those ones are more adventure mysteries, because all of those go from Jaya is a history professor in San Francisco who solves present day crimes linked to India's colonial history. So all of those books start in San Francisco and then go to a different foreign destination. So, so far in that series, there's been Scotland and France and India and Italy, Cambodia, and Japan. So that's why I need research for those ones to go on those grand adventures. So Jaya is paused, but someday I'm going to return to her because I'm not done with her and I love her. And those books are in the same universe as the Secret Staircase Mysteries. So the same characters do overlap, but there's just a different focus of what the story is. So did you think of your other question?
Well, I did, and then I have another one.
Okay, okay. More questions.
When you went to Scotland with the group and did all this writing, did you also get to see Scotland?
Yeah, so the question is, when I did the writing retreat in Scotland with my writers group, in addition to writing, did we get to see Scotland? The answer is yes. So the rule of the writing retreat was that we had to spend all morning writing. So first thing in the day when we were all freshest, we would do writing, and we could also brainstorm with each other on breaks and things. And then if we got our writing done that first half of the day, then after lunch, we could go out exploring and seeing Scotland. And we did stay, most of us stayed longer. So we also did do some, we were based in Edinburgh the whole time, but did day trips to different places, but we didn't do additional travels. But the reason I wanted to do Scotland was because I've been traveling to Scotland since I was 10 years old. Because my parents, I was really fortunate as a kid that I got to tag along on my parents' research trips since I'm an only child. So they started taking me with them when I was 10. And I really like that Scotland, it was the perfect age to like capture my imagination. And it really did. And so I wrote so many stories there that sometimes I was there for the whole summer. So sometimes there was other kids to play with, but otherwise I would just go exploring on my own and also make up all these stories, about like the castle ruins that I was exploring and different things there. So I've been going back to Scotland a lot since then. And my mom always has, more research and friends to, go stay with there as well. So that is something that was really central to the backstory of Tempest and the book. So I really wanted to take us all there.
Sounds wonderful. What's your second question?
And there's another.
I'll work on that.
Okay. Yes. Another question.
Well, one thing that readers always notice first, of course, is the cover. Now, sometimes authors don't have a lot of impact on the cover. Did you have input into the cover? And what do you think your cover tells readers when they pick it up to see whether they want to buy it?
Yes. So the question is about the book cover, that since readers always see the book cover first, and did I have any input, and what do I hope people will get out of the cover? So I feel so incredibly lucky. Let's see if I can leave that there. Okay, part of the cover is on the screen. So I feel incredibly lucky that I have such a great team at Minotaur Books, and they showed me a draft of the cover when they were working on it, and it was so amazing that there was only one small tweak that I had, because it was just so beautiful. There was this Anne sign here was even more like in this skull and bones font. So it was hard to distinguish as an Anne sign. And so because that is important for readers, that I just requested, can that be just more clearly an ampersand, not because it was beautiful, but it wasn't quite clear, in a fraction of a second that you see a book cover. So we wanted the title to be clear. So my agent and I agreed about that and asked about that one change, but otherwise it was really great. And I do love what it conveys also, because it's so bold and colorful and has like a whimsical feeling, which is such a big part of the book. But you also get that feeling of the architecture and the locked rooms and things by the little details on there. And the more you look at it, there's all these little details that really do reflect what's inside of the book. So yeah, so that was, I have very good book cover karma. I've been very lucky to have really, really great book covers for my books. I feel really fortunate there.
Wonderful. Any more questions?
I have some.
Oh,
Just not related to the writing
Where in Northern California are you? Are you in the Bay Area?
Oh, so the question is where in Northern California I am. And yes, I'm in the Bay Area. I'm near Berkeley, so by those hills, but in a smaller town up there. So yes. And another question
I
with
have
it.
a question. When will we be seeing the accidental alchemist again?
Oh, so the question is when we'll be seeing the accidental alchemist again? If I can wrangle Dorian the gargoyle into shape, I have planned, so I have a draft of the next book done. And I'm hoping to, because my original publisher of that series, Midnight Ink, they closed their mystery imprint. So they gave their authors the rights back to the books. So those ones I'm just putting out myself. So I don't have the same lead time with those ones. So if I finish my edits and get that to my editor soon, my hope is that, so the 10-year anniversary of when my debut novel came out is August 28th of this year. I'm going to be celebrating the 10-year anniversary of my first book. So I would love to put out the next Accidental Alchemist novel on August 28th. And so that is my goal. And so as long as I can finish my book revisions, that Dorian cooperates, get that in there, and that my editor gets me the good feedback, then that is the plan for that one. So it's nearly there, but I haven't said that publicly yet. I know, so all of you watching online, you're getting the secret scoop. So, but yeah, so I haven't said that publicly yet because I can't be 100% sure that I'm gonna pull it off, but I really hoping to. It's nearly there. I love the new story too. So yeah, I'm excited about that one too.
And if you do that, you have to come and do another event.
Oh yes, and the comment was that I need to come and do another event. Yes, I know, it's been so exciting to be traveling again. It's really nice.
And it's
so.
the same for us. It's so exciting to have someone in the store as opposed to looking at a screen.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah. And Anne is saying it's exciting to have authors and readers back in the store. So, which is so nice because online has been wonderful, but it's a different experience. So it's so nice to see folks in person again.
Well, you get immediate feedback, which really helps.
Yes, immediate
So,
feedback.
If there are no more questions, I'm going to thank you so much, Gigi, for a wonderful visit with us and the book. Also,
Yes, thank you so much, Anne, for having me, and thank you all for coming today, and thank you all for watching online. So thank you, everyone.
there's refreshments, and Gigi will be happy to sign books.
Yep, I will be signing books, and I have some bookmarks here too with skeleton keys.
Okay,
Okay.
which are so clever. And I'll turn that off and get it out of your way.
Okay. Bye, online folks.
You did it perfectly. Thank you.